What's going on, all you amazingly beautiful people? So, we're going to start with a question today. You can obviously see the questions on here, but I really want you to think about this. I really want you to think about how you feel about this. I want to ask you, do you have to be smart to ace organic chemistry? And I really want you to think about this if you think this is true. Do you have to be smart to ace organic chemistry, to excel in organic chemistry, and to understand organic chemistry? Okay. Now, I'm going to continue to go through this, but I want you to think about this as we go along. Now, I've been teaching organic chemistry since 1998, so you can do the math depending on when you're watching this video. It's been a long time. And so I've worked with valedictorians, students at the top of the class, students at the bottom of the class, students that consider themselves disabled. I've worked with students at the Ivy Leagues, community colleges, anywhere in between, and I've worked with all of them. I can't say I've worked with every single student, but I've seen a lot over the amount of years I've been doing this. And the thing I can say with confidence is that I have never met a student that could not excel in organic chemistry. I've never met a student that could not ace organic chemistry, understand organic chemistry. I just haven't. I know it seems like a bold statement, but just having done this as long as I can, I've never met a student that could not excel in organic chemistry. However, not all the students that I've worked with have excelled in organic chemistry. Now, you might be saying, well, Jay, I think something's wrong with your brain because those statements kind of conflict each other, and I could totally agree. But it is true. I've never met a student that could not ace organic chemistry. However, all the students that I've worked with have not excelled in organic chemistry. So I'm pretty sure that you're probably asking the exact same question that I did. So what's going on, right? How is that possible? If every student can ace organic chemistry, yet they're not, then what's happening? And what typically the response at this stage is, and this is what I've heard my entire life, is that, well, organic chemistry is hard. It's a weed out course. Some students get it, some students don't. Some students, are smarter than others. Organic chemistry is a hard class, so you really have to be able to have a good strategy. All of this stuff. But rather than taking that in, I decided, rather than just assuming that, okay, what they're telling me is true, I've always been the type of person that likes to ask questions, find things out for myself, not just assume that somebody else is telling me something that's true. I just want to know. So I wanted to know, is that true? So what was going on? So rather than just assuming that organic chemistry is hard and that students are either smart or dumb, I started to ask questions. And what I noticed was, I started to notice why some students excel in organic chemistry, and I started to notice why other students didn't excel in organic chemistry. Not just being like, why is this happening? But I started to see the patterns, why this is happening. And the amazing thing that I discovered was it had nothing to do with organic chemistry. So that's what we tend to default on, is we say, well, it's got to be organic chemistry, right? Because you're learning organic chemistry and it's either easy, or class is either easy or hard, and organic chemistry is hard. So therefore it must have to do with the content itself. It doesn't. And that's one of the biggest misconceptions. The organic chemistry is not the problem why students fail it. You could look at any class, right? Some students think math is easy. Some students think math is hard. Some students think biology is easy. Some students think biology is hard. So it has nothing to do with organic chemistry. So the thing about this is, obviously when you're learning organic chemistry, or any class for that matter, the strategy is important, right? You need to understand the language of the class. So organic chemistry has a certain language. You have to understand how to do organic chemistry to be able to communicate and answer questions. I get that. But the thing about the strategy is, it's only part of the story. Because usually the way that we try to solve the situation with students is we either say, okay, you either understand it or you don't, so it's intellectual, or what we need to do is just do a good strategy, and the most common strategy is read the textbook and work problems. If that was effective, then it would work for every single student. So then the logical conclusion is, well, some students are smart and some students aren't. But I found it has nothing to do with the student's intellectual capacity, and it has nothing to do with organic chemistry as a whole. So then once again, what is it? So strategy is only part of it. But the key was, rather than just making all of these assumptions that we tend to all do, when I started to really listen to the students and ask them questions rather than assuming, I discovered the key. I saw what was going on, and it was mind-blowing. And the thing is, it's not like this grand revelation. We all know it, but I think we've all forgotten it. I discovered that every single student, every single parent, every single educator, every single physician, every single dentist, every single person out there has a story about organic chemistry. And most of those stories are consistent. It's a weed out course. It's a hard course. I've talked to so many physicians like, oh my gosh, like Jay, every time you mention that word, I can't believe you went into that field. I want to throw up. It almost kept me out of medical school or dental school. I don't want to ever have to do that again. Or, oh my gosh, it's so terrible. And it goes on and on and on and on with this massive BS story. Everybody has this story about organic chemistry, and it's always the same. So what I discovered was student stories were different or are different about organic chemistry. So you can imagine that the students that excelled in organic chemistry, the story is very different from the students who didn't do well in organic chemistry. And I found out the content was irrelevant, their intellectual capacity was irrelevant. It was the story that they were telling themselves. So what I found, number one, is the stories make all the difference. Now, like I said before, the content is important. Like you can have a great story about organic chemistry, but if you don't understand, if you're not learning the language of organic chemistry, it doesn't matter. But what I have found is the stories make all the difference. So rather than you just believing me here, let me explain. I've got two stories I want to go over that I just thought about. And here's one of them. So there was this team that selected a group of students and they told the teachers that, hey, these are highly gifted students. They're excelling all their classes, and we need you to really challenge them because they're gifted, and that's what they need to constantly excel. So over a year, the students took these, they challenged these students, they knew they were gifted, they gave them all this support. They did all of this to really challenge them, not give them, not make them special, but ultimately challenge them because they knew that's what they needed. By the end of the year, all of these students were at the top of the class. And we would assume that, right? Because they're gifted and they're well educated. Come to find out, these group of students were not academically gifted, and they were actually academically challenged. They were at the bottom of the class. They weren't doing well at all. So the thing that it shows you here is even if somebody is not doing well, depending on the environment that you put in, and particularly the story that you're telling them, they will rise to the occasion because that is what they're seeing. So that's a pretty powerful story, but I want to tell you one of my own as well. So I had a student come to me a few years ago where they said, hey, Jay, I don't know what to do because my professor says I don't really understand organic chemistry. I need to drop the class. All my tutors are saying I just don't have a foundation. I need to drop it and retake it. But by the time they got in touch with me, this student, they couldn't drop the class because they had missed a date. So they said, Jay, I just don't know what to do because, and then they started saying, because everybody's telling me I don't have a good foundation, so I don't think I have a good foundation and I'm just not doing well and I just don't know what to do. So the first thing I said is we're going to cut this BS story out because it's not true. Because I'd already talked to her and I said, hey, look, I can tell that you're really smart. Let's figure this out. And so when this student came to me mid-semester, they had I think it was around a C-. By the end of the semester, they wound up having, I can't remember exactly, but it was either a B+ or an A-. So you can see here, irrespective of what people were telling this student and what they were telling themselves, they wound up moving towards the top of the class. So you can see here, this had nothing to do with intellectual capacity. It had nothing to do with organic chemistry. It had everything to do with the story that this student was hearing as well as they were telling themselves. So what I want to put out there, no matter who you are, is you do not have to believe the stories about organic chemistry just because they are simply not true. I don't want you to believe something that's not true. I want to let you know you do not have to believe them because they're not true. Having done this as long as I have and having worked with all the students that I have, like I said, I've never met a student that could not ace organic chemistry. And since I've learned this, what I've done is I've applied these techniques to students. So when I said not every student excels in organic chemistry, do I hit 100%? Of course not, because there are some students that no matter what I try on my end, they just will not let go of the story that organic chemistry is hard. And so those are the students that don't do well, no matter how much I share with them these tips and tricks that I've done over the years that have helped students excel in organic chemistry. They will not let go of that story. It's for some reason that story is important to them, and that's fine. So, but what I do want to encourage you to do is why not start a new story about organic chemistry? Why not say organic chemistry is going to be easy, it's going to be fun, I'm going to excel in it, I've got all the skills to do it. It's not this big thing, it's merely a stepping stone getting me to where I want to go. After I'm done with this class, I'm never going to have to see it again, but I'm going to get to live out my dream. Why not play out that story? And so I'm going to leave you with that. What story do you want to create about organic chemistry?